Thank you, everybody. So I'm actually really super excited that we get to be the last presentation of the event for this particular week, because hopefully through this presentation, you'll understand how product operations and how we're doing it at Simple Practice can help wrap this all up in a nice little bow, how we're doing this. And so there's been a lot of great topics over the last 2 days here. I mean, gaming your customer insights, sales-led versus product-led, create language and product, data analytics, OKRs, B2B, B2C, the tech space, how you can be yourself in that space, and then herding the cats. A wide variety of topics that we discussed this week, or in the last couple of days. So I'm sure everybody, like myself, are coming away from this with tons and tons of different ideas to take back to your offices on how we can implement a lot of the things that were discussed this week or in the last couple of days. How is all of that going to happen? You have day jobs also. You have to build the product. You have to do the research. You have to do the discovery. And so this is where product operations helps come into play here. And I'll explain how we're doing it at Simple Practice. Okay. Let me give you a little background about Simple Practice. So we build software that helps, thank you. That's on the side there, okay. So we help build software that helps, right now our big space, where we fit in the market is we're helping behavioral health therapists run the day-to-day business of their operations. And so our software does everything from telehealth, it does everything from billing to insurance, payments. We do documentation of how well the client of the clinician is moving along in their therapy. And so this system helps do that. And so what you'll see from our mission is our driving force on a daily basis is the care for the practitioners who have found it their calling to care for others. So this is kind of what we're doing at Simple Practice and how we go about it. And so there's a lot going on just in that space alone. And that's our core platform. But I'll explain more what our ecosystem of what we're also trying to do will look like moving forward here. So sorry, let's get this. Okay, so our story for today. So I want to lay out sort of what the foundation looked like of product operations at Simple Practice. I want to explain to you what our initial approach was. A member of my team, Rafael Gomez, is standing over there. He's going to come up and talk about the results of all the stuff that we worked on. And then I'll lay out what our future looks like at Simple Practice with product operations. So it is a lot to tell as part of this story here. So when I first interviewed for this position at Simple Practice, this was the initial question that our CPO asked me as part of the interview process. And it was pretty profound at that moment because there was just so much going on. As I went through the interview process and talked to many different members of the team at Simple Practice, what I was basically doing is trying to pick up on all the different signals that they were telling me through sort of the questions they were asking me. And so when I got to that interview and I heard this question, it all started to make sense here. So can there ever be enough process on the way to building and delivering great products? So I'll get to that answer in a second here, but I wanted to set the stage of everything else, kind of what we're doing here. Okay, so at Simple Practice, where does product operations fit in? So as you can see up on the screen here, we sit in the middle of a lot of different teams. And so we sit in the middle of product design, we sit in the middle of product management, and then we also sit in on the engineering side as well. And you'll see that that's going to grow quite a bit in a second here. But the main objective and the main thing that my function was when we started product operations at Simple Practice was to focus on alignment and to focus on processes where we can. And you'll understand that in a second here, how we go through that. Okay, so we all have external customers that all of our PMs talk to, speak to, work with, interview, and do studies with. And so we have all of those external customers. But for product operations, the list here is who our customers are internally. So we deal with product, we deal with engineering, we deal with marketing, we deal with customer success, compliance, legal, finance, and our leadership team. And so because of that role and where we sit in, we have such a large overview of what's going on across our entire ecosystem within product. So a lot of our teams are focused on one main objective as part of their role. And what we do is we get to see everything, and we get to see this big giant board of what's going on across our product team to be able to then help out all of our different internal customers. And so because we have such a wide variety of customers, they all don't have the same requirements of what they need from the product team. And so what we do is we have one name for us. We're one giant product group. And so the needs for all of those are much different for each of these different areas. And so how we deal with the legal team, how we deal with the finance team, how we deal with our leadership team, it all varies, and there needs to be some way of have certain language for each of these groups also. Okay, so to begin, once I got started, my main objectives was try to get some alignment, and then the other part was just what are the processes and what are the gaps that need to be filled immediately. So the first thing is I had to go on a listening tour across all of Simple Practice. So I had scheduled meetings with a lot of the department heads to help me understand like what were some of the gaps they were experiencing when dealing with product. And so we had to gather, just like being a regular PM, and that's where my career started, was actually being a PM. And so I had to take those same things that I learned being a PM and apply it to being as part of product operations. So you gather evidence, you gather data, you reflect on what they're telling you, you analyze and you evaluate, you make decisions on where we're going, and you define and redefine, select and design, and then you ultimately implement. And so while I was on this listening tour, I was getting multiple different messages from every group. And so one group would tell me, we need this, we have a gap here, we have a process that needs to be put in place. I go speak to the engineering team, they tell me the same thing, but with a slight variation of what they needed. I then would go to the marketing team, slight variation of what I was already told the last 2 times. One of the things that they didn't tell me though is what was the exact problem me adding an additional process was going to help them solve for. And so that was the missing piece of it. Like, we can implement as much process as we need, but we may not exactly be ready for all of this. Okay, so like I said, this is the story I got from multiple areas. We need more process, we need more process. And my answer was, no, not yet. You do not need more process, because adding more process is going to complicate more things without trying to come up with a large strategy that's going to help every single group. There's never going to be a time when I can come up with one process that says this is going to fit everything, everybody's needs, everybody's going to be happy campers, and we're going to be on our way. We have to tailor the different processes, and we have to tailor we have to fill the certain gaps in a certain order, in a certain time frame, so that way it could be increased adoption to what that would look like. One of the challenges that we saw from trying to introduce too much process early on in this whole process was that people didn't really understand why we were making changes. Everybody was doing just fine according to the way they were thinking. We had PMs doing lots of the communication. We had PMs that were doing a lot of the research. We had PMs that were trying to do data. We had PMs that were all across the board. And what that was doing is they were taking a lot of their time, and they didn't really get to do the job of a PM, which was, let's try to find out what problems we need to solve for our customers in order to grow our business. And so this is where product operations has stepped in, and this is the part where I wanted that last question to be answered. You need to tell me what the problem I'm solving for in order to help you, so I can take a lot of the day-to-day stuff you have been doing and either add a process or figure out another tool that we may need, or figure out and say, look, we don't need this, let's get rid of this, and take it off your plate completely. So we had to go on that huge listening tour with all of our internal customers to get us to a point where, like, okay, we're in a good spot, let's try to figure this out, and let's put some processes in place where it makes sense. Let's not go entirely too fast, but let's also not go too slow also, because there are some legitimate gaps that we needed to fill really quick. So we're going to talk about what the results section of everything looks like, and this is what Raphael is going to talk to you about.
Everybody hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. Hi, everybody. My name is Raphael. I'm an Associate Product Operations Analyst at Simple Practice. So Abel just talked about how he laid the foundation for product operations at Simple Practice. Now we're going to fast forward a little bit to the beginning of this year. So team changed a lot, team grew, and then processes that were working before necessarily aren't working anymore. So what we did is we decided to go on another listening tour with our internal customers, primarily our product managers and designers. So from there, we chose a select few, 15 out of 50 of them, and we identified some opportunities. And we like to use the word opportunities and not problems in our work. So as you see here on the screen, there's a couple opportunities and areas that we saw. So I'm going to go over a couple tactics that we use in product operations. So this is something we like to call connecting the dots. So in product operations, we tend to have more of an overview of what's going on and how certain processes we implement affect other teams and other stakeholders. So if you can see, product sort of is at center right there on the side, and then it connects everywhere within Simple Practice. So we have a lot of teams that do work in silos within product. And then from there, they want to implement process, they want to change something on their own. They don't necessarily see how it's going to affect every other portion of Simple Practice. So we're always keeping in mind, always having that overview, and basically seeing everything at a higher level. It's kind of like you can't see the picture if you're in the frame, and we like to take ourselves out of that frame and see the entire picture across the board of what's going on. So next, going back to how we did those interviews, we like to use opportunity solution trees. And then from there, so our outcome is to create an efficient and an empowered team. So that sits at the top there. Then we identify our opportunity space. We have all our opportunities below, very high level though. And then from there, opportunities under those opportunities. And then we choose one opportunity and sort of break down those solutions and stack them against each other, weighing out impact versus effort. So let me give you an example. So our outcome, as I mentioned before, create an efficient and an empowered team. Then opportunities, so let's choose data. And then we have two opportunities under data. One's to increase the utilization of data in the product team, and then another one can be, for example, improve the way we track certain items in our software. Then, so we're going to move forward with improve the utilization of data within our product team. 3 solutions. Let's teach everyone SQL. Let's choose a user-friendly data visualization software. And lastly, let's provide data dashboards for our customers, our internal customers. And then we stack them against each other. Maybe teaching everybody SQL isn't going to be the most effective immediately. Maybe implementing a new tool isn't also going to be as effective as fast as we want it to be. So we chose a third option, and that's to create data dashboards for each of our product groups. And that's simple, just collecting requirements, what they want to track, then reviewing those, normalizing them so they look similar across the board, and then supplying those so they're able to track and actually see what's going on in the work that they're doing. So I'm going to go over how we sort of implement process. So before we went over the sort of discovery work, how we're evaluating our opportunity space, next we're going to strategize. And that's sort of setting the foundation for the other 3 steps that you see there. So how are we going to communicate this? Who needs to know? How are we going to document this? How are we going to present this? How are we going to release this? So then we went into the communication after we decided how we're going to communicate this, whether that be a meeting, whether that be meeting with certain subgroups, and then choosing a release. So honestly, case by case, it depends how we're going to release this, whether it be a pilot, we choose one group, whether it be in phases, whether we work in parallel, or we just completely do a plunge and start brand new. And then from there, we always iterate, collect feedback. And then I can give you just a use case. Sometimes things don't work, and we are well familiar with that. Recently, earlier this year, we tried to implement a new product management software for our team, and we chose a group to pilot. And we were ready, we were excited, we thought this was it, that we were going to do it. And we chose that group to pilot. We had all the prep work done for the rest of our group, and that first group, it didn't work well. So yeah, not all things work as planned. But looking back on that and just thinking what went wrong, what went well, what could have gone better. So from there, I wouldn't necessarily call it a failure because we did learn something. We learned something about our team. We learned more about their wants and needs. And after evaluating that, we were just not ready for a new software to be implemented for our team. So then from there, we reverted back to what we were using before and iterated so it best fit the needs and wants of our team. So tracking efficiency. Basically, everything that we're doing, we want to track it, whether that be how well the team is using it or if there's certain KPIs we can actually measure. And then that's how we measure our success. And overall in product operations, we want to give that overall picture of what's going on in product. So it could be how are we allocating our resources? How much time are product managers and designers and engineers spending on certain tasks? Are we spending more time on building new features, or are we choosing to work on more bugs and enhancements that we need? And then from there, we want to sort of give that overall health like I was talking about. And between Abel and myself, there's a lot that we can track. So we're having the opportunity to open up another position and grow our product operations team within the coming weeks. And then next. So we talk about efficiency and empowerment. So how do these two work together? Well, we like to think of it as an efficient team is an empowered team, because the more efficient you are, the more time you have to be empowered. If you don't have certain processes in place, if you don't know how you're doing, you're sort of building that process along the way, which takes a lot more time than already having a process. So we create efficiency so our team has more time to be empowered. And I always like to throw in a few quotes. So the reward for work well done is the opportunity to do more. And I'm sure we're all familiar with that. And there is truth in this irony here. And when you work through certain opportunities, you uncover more opportunities. And opportunities are endless. So I sort of outline, identify opportunities, discovery, strategize, implement. And then I want to go over our iterative approach. So as mentioned before, retrospectives are important. Always collecting feedback. So from there, we're able to identify more opportunities to improve a process, to find out more what our team wants and needs. And then from there, it's continuous improvement. And then I will hand it back over to Abel to talk about how our iterative approach goes into our future and our next steps here in product operations.
Thank you. So let me talk about Raphael's position really quick. So Raphael has actually been an intern for the last several months for us at Simple Practice. He just recently graduated, and so after that, we determined we need this guy on our team. So we created this position here in Product Ops in order to help continue some of the work he did during his internship. And so because of that, product, or CPO, we had a discussion about what else do we need across the team. And so like you just mentioned, our team is growing because there are just so many different areas that we need to be involved in. And so one of the big things that we do in operations is facilitate, facilitate, facilitate. So if there's a discussion that needs to be had about our financial results within product and how we can help that, we're doing that. If there's a discussion that needs to be held about further product marketing studies that need to occur to make sure that our market fit is appropriate, we're going to help lead that charge. If there are other discussions about whether or not, from a strategy standpoint, we need to do this particular story or this particular initiative first before we do others, that's where we get involved. And so because we're listening, and that's the main thing that we try to do in all of our calls, all of our meetings, everything we do is we're constantly listening for the signals across all of our team. So if one person says, I'm just not getting things prioritized, my stories is just sitting there and not getting prioritized, we're listening and say, okay, there's a problem that you just identified that's not being addressed. So sometimes then product operations will step in and try to help facilitate, why isn't this story getting picked up? What is the resource constraints? What does that look like? So when it comes to the future, the reason why we hired Raphael was because he has a unique perspective coming in from the outside. He doesn't have traditional PM background, and that's okay. I don't want that to be part of the team. There are other people, myself included, with my background that can help fill that part of the gap. I need his fresh perspective on how things are operating just from another way to think about things. And so that is part of what our future is and what we're building out. Okay, so I showed you this initially of what was product operations when I first started. The areas in under our responsibility have now grown. So in addition to alignment across all the different groups, we continue to do that. Data at Simple Practice has been an area that we have had less focus on, we're now really leaning into that and going all in on sort of data. So that's going to be part of Raphael's new role to help us understand the health of the product in general. So that's where data comes in. Of course, we're going to do the processes because there are multiple gaps. As we continue to grow, we're going to find some gaps that we just weren't aware of or didn't necessarily exist when we first started product operations. Portfolio management. Okay, so we're growing. We have several huge initiatives that we're working on. We're gathering actually a plan for the next couple of years of what that's going to look like. And so because our portfolio is growing, the way we're set up at Simple Practice is we have basically what we call experiences. So one experience is responsible for, say, our core platform. Another experience is responsible for, we have learning courses that apply to therapists. And so we have another one that's responsible for that, another one that's responsible for just the overall sort of the glue that holds everything together. And they do all the different internal systems we work on. So we have multiple things going on at any given time. So portfolio management, how well things are moving along, how well things are progressing. It's all falls under now product management, operations. And then the last thing is strategy. So we just invested quite a bit by bringing on this large product marketing team that's going to help us understand where we fit into the market. And so because of all these initiatives that we want to get done in the next 2 to 3 years, there needs to be a strategy that's involved in how we're going to do that. So there is a way we need to think about how we're going to start dedicating resources moving forward. There's a new way we need to think about, like from a financial standpoint, if we need to hit certain milestones, what is that strategy to get us to hit that financial milestone we're reaching? And this is where product operations comes in, because we have that such unique view sitting at sort of the top of all of product. We can see, like, if you do this, this is what the end result will be like. Or if you don't do this, this is what the end result is going to look like. We have all of our experienced leads. Basically, they lead all of those different initiatives. But because they're so focused on just what their core application is doing, they're not necessarily seeing the larger picture. And so this is where product ops works with each of those teams to help them understand, like, this is what's going to occur if you don't start working on this now, or if you're spending X amount of time on only doing stories that are small enhancements, like, you're never going to get to the bigger things. So these are little things that we work with all of our teams on a daily basis to help sort of point out how we can be more efficient. And like Raphael said, if you're more efficient, you're going to be a more empowered team to start making decisions. So what we're trying to do is move away from the model where everything comes from the top down. We want to start going bottom up here at Simple Practice. And we want our PMs, as they're having those discussions with our customers, different clients, different outside vendors, like, try to bring it all together and come up with the ideas that are going to help drive some of those company outcomes that we're striving for. And so all of our teams are now sort of like have a responsibility to bring all of those ideas forward, and then we can surface them up to our leadership team and say, if we do this, because I've worked with our product marketing team to understand what our total addressable market is, what our service market is going to be, like what part of the market share we can get. I've already put together the entire case, and so now I'm bringing it to you just basically to get the sign off so we can move forward, because we want them to be empowered to make those decisions so that there's no bottleneck at the top waiting for a decision to be made. So that's what we're trying to do, is take away some of the day-to-day stuff that they don't really need to be involved in, to let them do what they need to do to make Simple Practice successful. Okay, monetization, that's a big one here also. And so one of the things we're trying to do is get more involved in that strategy. And so that's one of the things that now is added to our purview in product operations. Because we're talking about all these studies that our product marketing is doing, because we're talking about a sort of 2 to 3 year plan out and how we need to get there, it's now our job to help tie that all together. So if we know that this experience is going to build this experience is going to be to do that, we need to know what order we need to put it all together in order to get that giant outcome we're going to get. So part of the portfolio management is helping put together that strategy. It's not a one-size-fits-all. We have to make adjustments, and we have to do things in a very certain order. And that's kind of what we're striving for, is to put that all together so that way we can have our empowered teams start making the decisions on how they're going to deliver those outcomes because we've explained to them where we need to get to on what timeline, and then let them go do their work without having to do some of the other stuff that now product operations is responsible for. One of the other things we're now also doing in product operations is as we go on these listening tours with our internal customers and we're hearing certain things, it's also sort of our job to help raise issues that we're hearing from the team to help make them more efficient. So if they think that leadership is a bottleneck, that message may not always get through. So it may go to like their experienced lead, it may go to our vice president of product, and then go to our CPO, and then ultimately our CEO. So what we're trying to do is also help facilitate those conversations of some things that we know may need some additional help. And so that's one of the things, like I regularly have conversations, just casual conversations, like if I'm in the office that particular day or that particular week, and our CEO is walking by, and I'll say, hey, at the end of the day, can we go grab a beer, because there's some things I need to talk to you about. So part of our job is to help raise some of those issues in conjunction with our experienced leads, because they're ultimately responsible for those teams. But these are things that are making our team less efficient at the moment. And so because we want to make product operations help them be more efficient, I'm going to raise that topic for them in conjunction with what they think as well. And part of that overall strategy is talking about our roadmaps and how we're going to allocate resources. And so because we have this 2 to 3 year plan in place, like we're going to have to do an entire reallocation of some of our resources in order to hit those milestones. So this is where product operations is all going to help do all that. And so we talk about, and I try to drill this into not only my head, but Raphael's head, and our new person that's going to come is we have to see the entire board of what's going on. Like we have to sort of be that catch-all of like everything that is going on, and if there's something that falls, or we need to be there to pick it up. And so by seeing the entire board across the entire ecosystem of all of our products that we have, like we'll be able to do that and tie it all together for everybody. Okay, so Raphael showed you this particular graphic earlier. And so when it comes to product operations, all those little lines, that's us. So we're all trying to tie it together between all the different teams. And so at any given moment, we're having conversations with our customer success team. We're having conversations with our marketing teams. We're having conversations with our data team. And so we can't get to all of those things all at once. It's just impossible. So we have to do a really, really good job of prioritizing items. And so each of those lines, we help connect those dots of where everything's going to make our teams more efficient. And so because of that, like any given day, it's never a boring day because there's always something going on. And we're having conversations with a lot of those things, or we're establishing new programs like our voice of the customer, or new processes of how we're going to educate our team to make them more efficient as well. Okay, I also like quotes as well. So success is where preparation and opportunity meet. So as long as we try to help prepare our team to be as successful as possible, I think there's going to be lots of opportunity that's going to open up for us. And so that's where our success is going to come into, helping everybody be more successful, seeing the opportunities that are available to them, and seeing how they can take full advantage of those, because all of these opportunities are learning opportunities as well. And so that's kind of where we want to go. We want to definitely make sure that we're well prepared for anything that could come our way moving forward. So back to my original question, can there ever be too much process on the way to building great products? So after listening to all the questions I was asked during my interview process, my response to the CPO when he asked that was, yeah, you got too much process, you can't do it. And so you have to be very strategic in the way you address adding additional process to it. Because one of the things we're finding out was adoption for any given process we try to implement is going to be very hard, because the team has been used to doing things in a certain way from whenever the time started, when they started with a simple practice. And so I don't like to try to implement process for the sake of implementing process. I like to do it in a very strategic way. I like to do it in a small way sometimes. Sometimes you have to just go big because we need such a dramatic change, because we are such a growing team and everybody has a different set of skill sets and everybody has different levels of experience. So we have to fine tune how we're going to implement those processes and when. So it's just an ongoing process of how we're going to do things sort of moving forward by introducing processes. So yeah, there could be that area there. And with that, I think that was our last slide. questions. Okay. Start with the first one. How do you know if a company is ready to adopt product ops? Is it about scale, life stage, industry, or something else? So when the CPO was determining whether or not he was going to add on product ops to Simple Practice, one of the things he knew was what our hiring plan was going to be like over the course of the next 90 days. In my first 90 days, I think we almost doubled the size of our team at Simple Practice. And because of those different levels of skill sets, those different levels of experience, he felt that there needed to be somebody sitting in the middle of product ops, where product ops lives. And so I think it comes down to scale. I think wherever you are in the maturity level of your business will help determine whether or not you need to have a product ops teams come on board. In the industry also we are, after when COVID hit, our business grew almost very large, let's just say that, because we offered the telehealth portion of our platform, and everybody was seeking therapy at that point in time just to be able to deal with their emotions of being at home now all the time. So because of that, our business grew so much that was another indicator to our CPO that product operations needs to be included now at Simple Practice, just because of what was happening in the market at that particular point in time. So I think those two things, just the scale and the size of your team and how fast you're going to grow it, and then what else is happening marketing condition-wise in the industry. Okay, next question. How can companies start a product ops team if they don't have one now? Take the first step. Do a lot of research. So what my CPO at the time said is he had a lot of contacts in different parts of industries, and not only in the healthcare industry, but in more tech, more SaaS, and he was talking to a lot of different people of what they're doing. So he said he reached out to multiple people within his network to explain, what does product ops looks like at your business? What does product ops look like here? How are you utilizing them now in the early stages, or how are you using them if they're a sort of been established team for a while? So I think it's first doing all the different research, and exactly if you have identified gaps at your teams, figure out what those gaps, can those gaps be covered by your PMs? Do you want to use them and use their time to help fill those gaps? Or do you want to bring on somebody that would be solely focused on helping create a product ops team, helping work with all of the other teams? Because Simple Practice communication and us facilitating all of that communication, that is huge. That's something that just didn't exist at the product team because there was just so much going on so fast as we were growing that sometimes some of our other groups, our customer success team, our marketing team, they were left out of the loop of what kind of product was doing, which was a very bad experience. And now we've got it to a point where they're we're trying to over communicate as much as possible. Why is the team called product ops and not just ops? So at Simple Practice, we do actually have multiple ops teams. So we have a business ops team, we have a product marketing ops team, we have, of course, a dev ops team as well. And so our job, because it just basically, we sit in product and that's our sole focus. And so we do get involved with some of our other teams at Simple Practice, our biz ops team, to have them and sort of help them understand what is going on. And so it's basically just because we sit in product. So it's nothing we call ourselves ops, it really doesn't matter, but it's because we sit in it and our focus is product ops. That's kind of what we do, and that's what we're called. Okay, last question it seems here. Do you believe the introduction of product ops will change the traditional role of a product manager? I think moving forward, depending on the team structure, I definitely think that product ops will help redefine what a product manager does and what they're responsible for. We are trying to get our product managers to not only be empowered to be able to make those decisions, but let them decide how they're going to come up with a solution and the process in order for them to deliver on that solution to our customers. That's where we want their sole focus to be. We don't want them handling just random paperwork. We don't want them helping build knowledge base articles or Notion pages or Confluence pages. We want them solely focused on our customers and their needs, because we are growing so fast and because we have this large ecosystem. We need them to focus on how this is going to impact this, and then work with the other groups and the other PMs in order to figure out and make sure they cover all of the necessary scenarios so they don't miss any requirements in the development process. So 100% I agree that I do think that product ops will eventually redefine what a PM looks like. Depending on the size of your business and your organization, it will definitely do it. Sometimes you're just going to need some of your PMs to do the ops functionality, and then sometimes you're going to grow so large that you just need to add this new function into the process. And I think with that, that's the last question, or unless anybody else has any other questions. All right, everybody, thank you so much.